Hey everybody, Mrs. KJ here. Today is your chance to earn back up to 3 points on the 3.07 quiz. As always, have your periodic table, cheat sheet, calculator, pen, and paper ready. We've been talking a lot about concentration and how we express concentration. So we've done molarity, molality, mole fraction, mass to mass percent, and volume to volume percent. Parts per million, so another way to express concentration. The expression 1 ppm means a given solute exists at a concentration of 1 part per million parts of the solution. The oceans are one of the largest sinks on the planet. So when we think of a sink, we think of where we wash our hands. But in earth science class, a sink is basically where something settles down and then it sits there. So the oceans are one of the largest sinks on the planet, absorbing roughly 25% of the atmospheric carbon dioxide we emit each year. But these natural processes take time and can't keep up with our current level of carbon dioxide emissions. Evidence to this fact is in the numbers. Global atmospheric carbon dioxide concentration in 1960 was 317 parts per million. By 1990, it was 354 parts per million. By 2010, it was 390 parts per million. And today, it's 408 parts per million. And ooh, I cited my source. This means out of how many particles of air, there are blank particles of carbon dioxide molecules today, but there are only this many carbon dioxide molecules in 1960. So hit pause, see if you can get this answer. So since it's parts per million, it's out of a million particles, there's 408 carbon dioxide molecules today, but there were only 317 in 1960. So that's a big jump, 300 to 400. That's huge. Think about if that was your salary. You went from $300 to $400. That's a big difference. The other way that we can talk about parts per million is talking about it mathematically with grams. So parts per million is 1/1,000,000th of a gram per gram of sample solution. So if I have 1 gram, which is about the size of a paper clip, and I don't have a paper clip next to me, so about a paper clip, that means 1/1,000,000th of that would be a part per million. B, it is 1 gram of solute per million grams of the solution. So if I have 1,000,000 grams of solution, 1 gram is sugar if it's 1 part per million, and 999,999 grams of it is water. So notice that we use the general word part up on top, but we use grams down below. This is because usually we use grams. All right, so I put it on there as well for a reference. And let's look at this. Gluten-free. So gluten-free, are any of you gluten-free people? Gluten-free, which is GF food, must have less than 20 parts per million of gluten. Very low gluten foods contain up to 100 parts per million of gluten, so it is a big difference. If you have celiac disease, you should have no more than 10 to 50 milligrams of gluten per day. 1 serving or 2 slices of Aldi's gluten-free bread is 66 grams. I picked that one because that's what my daughter eats. We're going to pretend it has 20 parts per million. Now we know it has to have less than that. It might have 0. I don't know. I didn't do that research. I'm saying let's just say it has the max. How many grams of gluten is that? So remember, if you have celiac disease, you can only have between 10 and 50 milligrams. So how much is that? 1 gram equals 1,000 milligrams. And if you can only have 10 milligrams, that's 0.01 grams. That's like a tenth of a paper clip. That's a tiny, tiny amount. So it's a big deal if you have celiac disease. All right, so let's pretend again that this brand of bread has 20 parts per million of gluten. How many grams of gluten does it have? Where to start? Well, let's change that 20 parts per million to a decimal. So how are you going to do that? Hit pause, see if you can figure it out. And we are going to take 20 parts per million. Remember, the per means divide, so 20 per million. And that's going to equal 0.00002. Let's change it to scientific notation. Okay, how many numbers can you have in front of the decimal for scientific notation? Just the 1. And then we have to do times 10 to the, how many places did we move it? How many places did we move the decimal? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so it has to be times 10 to the 5th power, but ooh, not quite the 5th. It has to be to the what? Negative 5th, because it is less than 1. So crazy small. All right, so we changed our 20 parts per million into a decimal. I am going to erase the scientific notation on this one. We'll focus on the decimal. What do we do now? Well, oh, I should comment, I cited my sources down here. If you need them, let me know, because they're going to disappear, so I have more room to write. So now what? It might help to think of this 0.00002 as a proportion or percent. So what are you going to do with that? You're going to multiply it by 66 grams. Where did that 66 grams come from? That's how much one serving or 2 slices of this bread is. All right, so put that in your calculator. What do you get? And it was so think of it as 0.00002 of 66 grams, means that you're going to multiply them, and you're going to get 0.00132. What's our unit? Well, our unit didn't go away. Our unit is grams. How many milligrams is that? Because remember, how much somebody with celiac disease can eat of gluten is in milligrams. So how many places do you move the decimal? 3 hops to the right. So 2 slices of gluten-free bread has about 1.32 milligrams of gluten, which means you could eat like 15 pieces of bread. Now, obviously you shouldn't for other reasons, but okay, even if all these brands happen to have the max, which I don't know it does, I made that part up, that it had the 20, but even if it did, 15 pieces of bread, I mean, you don't have to worry about it. So let's look at what you need to email me. If wheat bread, so now we're going to talk about regular wheat bread, not gluten-free, has about 53,000 parts per million of gluten. Yeah, 53,000 compared to our gluten-free bread had what, less than 20? Huge difference. So regular wheat bread has 53,000 parts per million of gluten. What does that mean in words? In other words, what does 53,000 ppm mean? 1 serving or 2 slices of whole wheat bread, we'll assume it's 66 grams, has about 53,000 parts per million of gluten. How many grams of gluten does 2 slices of whole wheat bread have? Gluten-free bread has a maximum of 0.00132 grams per serving of gluten. I should add that in there, huh? Of gluten. If you have celiac disease, you should have no more than 10 to 50 milligrams of gluten per day. Would it be a big deal to eat this bread that we figured out in question 2? Don't just give me a yes, no, kinda. Give me a little bit more. So yes, a lot. Yes, kinda. Yes, 1,000 times too much. Yes, 10,000 times too much. Yes, 10 times too much. You could eat 2 slices and you'd be fine, but no more. That's the kind of answer I'm looking for number 3. All right, if you have questions, let me know.